Well, no, let's just make it simple and start easy. We're talking about the Neon Demon today, obviously. What did you guys? Because you guys, I had seen it a few times, and we just watched it together a few days ago. What did you guys think of the movie, just overall?
As far as with Neon Demon, I thought it was a pretty good movie. Visually, really good. It was kind of a slower movie, and as far as Refn's work, I mean, I've only seen Drive before this, and I wouldn't say it's nearly as good as Drive, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd agree with that for sure.
For me, I'm kind of on the exact same page as you guys. Like it's definitely more of a metaphorical movie whenever it comes to like the story and all that. But I really like the visuals were just gorgeous. I loved them. There was a lot of really good scenes that kind of like definitely made me feel like give me something to like feel about, because there's been a lot of movies lately that I'm just like watching them, but it, like I feel invested in some of the scenes a lot more than some of the scenes that didn't really grasp me, but there's a couple in this movie that like really get the blood flowing.
Yeah, I actually, because I told you guys before we watched this movie that I didn't like it, so that's why we thought it would be a good one to talk about, because I could be the dissenting voice here, and that's probably what I'm going to end up being, because I still don't like it after, I think I've seen it like 3 or 4 times now. Um, there is, the last like half an hour is really well done horror to me, but it's everything that builds up to it beforehand that just feels like very empty and like I don't know. I don't want to say like style over any kind of substance, but that's more or less what it is. Like I think the entire first like what is it like a 2 hour movie, hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes of the movie are is more or less summed up at the very beginning, like with the photo shoot. The girl's got her like the model's got her like neck slit open and she's having photos taken, and I feel like right up front the message of the allegory is immediately clear. Like this is, Hollywood, whatever, arts. They bring in artists, like beautiful people, whatever, and they like drain them of their life. They use them until there's nothing left. And I feel like that's summed up pretty well at the beginning of the movie, and then it's just an hour and a half of being beaten over the head with that same message. That's the reason that I don't particularly like this one.
I can definitely see that, and for me, one of the biggest problems I have with it is it seems tonally at the beginning, like you can definitely feel that there's some like horror elements, but it really feels more of like a just cut and dry coming of age story with very beautiful visuals that happen to be kind of chilling in a lot of ways. Once the actual horror aspect starts to kick in, it becomes way more interesting. But I can agree with you. It seems like at least the first part of the movie, you can sum it up at the very beginning. But I don't know. There's pros and cons for a lot of what he did.
I want to go back to the theme real quick, because there's something else about this movie and its theme that annoys the shit out of me. Like allegories in general that just kind of like beat you over the head with the message. Like, and don't get me wrong, an allegory doesn't necessarily have to be subtle, but if it's going to be blatant, you have to have more than one thing to say. But anyway, the other thing about the movie that annoys me is like where the message is coming from. I mean, this kind of story, like the whole like, oh, Hollywood chews up people and spits them back out. Hollywood, or just being involved in the arts in general is incredibly dark. It has a dark side to it. It loses a little bit of its punch when you know it's coming from someone who has been so successful within this world. It's somebody. To me, it almost feels like Nicolas Winding Refn doing like kind of the same thing that like movies like La La Land do, where they're just so clearly Hollywood sucking their own dick. Like it just feels like Refn trying to make like this whole world of like filmmaking and the arts and everything seem so much more edgier, and like I don't know. It's just something that
You're saying that it seems like a movie or a theme in the movie that would lead to Meryl Streep giving it a standing ovation at the Oscars.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a movie that tries to give you all the... It tries to build it up as much as it can before the bang, but it waited way too long to give you the payoff, in a sense.
Yeah.
Like, the first hour and a half is just filled with uneasiness,
Yeah.
and then the last, 30 minutes is the horror and, just the weirdness, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, in which, in general, I don't mind. Like, I like older horror movies that really take their time and set everything up and let you sit and stew in the suspense. But with this, it's more... Because almost all of the horror elements are brought in through, dream sequences and visions, and, we're never sure what's real and what's not. It very much feels like a lot of the, scarier parts of the story are taking place only in the protagonist's head, which, in my opinion, makes a lot of it lose its effectiveness. But I don't know. What did you guys think about before obviously the violence and gore and everything that ends the movie, just up until let's say the 45-minute mark? As a horror movie, how did you guys feel about it?
Yeah, I can... See, I'm okay with kind of that small scale. Like you were saying, it's kind of a slow crawl and there's weird events and weird things that happened. But I feel like you need a character that's going to react in kind of a realistic way, because, not to hate on the actor, I think she did a good job, especially in the second half of the movie. But there is a lot of times that she just kind of seems to be oh, that's kind of weird. And any other, sane human being would be something really fucked up's happening here. We may need to check this out.
I was just attempted lesbian raped.
Yeah, that's whenever it started for me to, crawl up and get a little bit more closer to horror. But I feel like you brought up a good point with the whole, you don't know if it's just in her head or if it's actually happening in real life. And they kind of swap, because it's oh, this did happen in real life, or this happened in her head. Which I think it can be done well and executed well, but it's very hard. And it kind of fell into the same pitfall that I saw 13 Reasons Why, which I feel like this is vastly superior to that. But that's one of the biggest problems in that, is you don't know what's just in their heads, or is it is it supposed to be surreal? Or are you saying this actual universe goes off of these principles? That's the biggest thing. I feel like a movie needs to figure out and set the principles of that universe and what can happen.
Yeah, I understand. I guess in the movie's defense, I'll say, because I am a huge fan of more avant-garde and I like that kind of hallucinatory, dreamlike quality to movies, and I did enjoy it in this one. It's just that for that kind of thing to work in a film, at least for me, narratively, for it to mesh with the narrative well, it kind of has to... The character that it's happening to, or the character that's exhibiting these qualities or whatever, needs to be grounded on some level. It has to be if you're gonna have that kind of thing, we need to know that this kind of thing is happening to a human being that exists in our world. For the movie to be, over an hour essentially of just really trippy visual. Don't get me wrong, the movie is gorgeous. Refn knows how to use light. He knows how to make shit look amazing. But for me, apart from the visual quality, just how all of that stuff works narratively, I don't think we have a rock, and that's what's really important in horror movies, for you to be scared or for you to have the emotions that the director's trying to evoke. You need to be able to feel connected to the character. And with this one, for me, I just feel like she herself seemed almost like a figment or a creation of this dream world. So there's nothing for you to project yourself onto. I never, throughout any of the movie, felt scared for the main character. I never felt... I would say the closest I got was, they established that she's 15 or 16 or whatever, and then she has the photo shoot where the guy, paints her in gold and takes all her clothes off and stuff. That was incredibly uncomfortable, but I think that was probably more just because it's, pedophilic than anything.
Right. I mean, as far as the movie goes, I think that the acting is probably, or at least on the main character's part, and not to, shit on the actress. I'm sure she's good in other movies. Maybe it's just the character itself, to me, didn't seem like there was really anything to the character. Like, they're just this innocent, childlike character from Georgia that is now in LA, and that's the entirety of their personality, really, that they don't know what they're doing there.
That's why when the switch happens, when they're like at the diner or whatever after her first show on the runway, she has that like hallucination of the like Triforce triangle looking thing, and then she's like sitting with her boyfriend and they're hearing all of this stuff that up until this point, or not all this stuff, but like stuff that up until this point the character was like more or less repulsed by or made to feel uncomfortable by, like the director or whatever is sitting there saying like talking shit about, I think it's like people that have plastic surgery, or like just talking about like beauty standards in general, and the boyfriend's like, oh, you know what, I want to get out of here, and she's like, no, go, like I'm a part of this. Like that's when that switch is so much less effective in my mind, because of how little there was of a character before that. And I don't think it's Elle Fanning's job, because she's great, and I think she's great in this. I just think it's the way she was directed.
I would compare it to like if The Shining the movie would not be nearly as effective if the characters in it hadn't been established before shit kind of goes crazy. And in this movie, like, the characters aren't really established, and then the stuff just sort of happens. And like her character, I get why her character switched at that moment, like why she became the way she was, because the moment she switches is when she is closing the show for the fashion show, and she's been in LA for like, at this point, what feels like a month, and she's already closing out a fashion show. So it's like this act is clearly the turning point that it got into her head, and she's changed for the worse at that point. But there wasn't really anything before that to really compel me to feel bad for the character for becoming the way she did.
Yeah, because even in the movie, like, she says, like, there's nothing really to me, I'm just pretty. And she kind of has those little parts, like, whenever she's talking with the dude, and they're, like, looking up at the sky and all that, like, a little bit of a personality starts to come out, and it's a little bit more like, oh, sweeter young girl. But other than that, like, you don't get too much, like, emotion out of her through the first part. But if we got just a little bit more of that.
Yeah, I think that's one of my bigger problems with Refn in general, is that I think that's why Drive is, like, in my opinion, such a better movie than this, and it's because Refn didn't write it. I really think that I don't want to say struggles, because the guy's like, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a great, very accomplished director, but when it comes to, like, writing character stuff, he's definitely not the best at, like, character building in a way that relates to people.
Who do you think, character-wise, really stole the show?
I don't remember their names in the movie, but Jenna Malone is the actress that plays the, like, redhead that also does like the beautician work for corpses. And then I think it's Bella something is the like I think her name's Gigi in the movie.
The one that had the plastic surgery.
Yeah, Ruby is the redhead.
Yeah,
that's Jenna Malone.
Yep. Yeah, the character. I think she did.
To Sarah, the one that at the end of the movie. Okay, so basically, we haven't even really explained what happened to the character, like to get to this point of what I'm trying to say here.
All right, do you just want to give a rundown of the synopsis real quick, Joe, in case anybody listening hasn't seen the movie?
Yeah.
That's.
Or I can do it if you want. I guess I've seen it the most times.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to explain it, that'd be great.
Okay, so long story short, young lady, very pretty, under, I think she's 15 in the movie. 16. Her parents die, and she moves to LA to pursue a modeling career. She gets signed at an agency who tells her to pretend to be 19. And then there are several scenes of her moving her way through the modeling world, and obviously it's Refn, so there's a lot of flashing lights and like dream sequences and whatnot. And then about 30 minutes before the movie ends, it turns into kind of like a ritualistic cannibal movie. The other models and girls in the movie eat the main character and bathe in her blood. And then, do they all kill themselves at the end?
No, what happened was that the character of Ruby, she like lays down on the floor, and
biggest period I've ever seen.
Yeah, like
it's kind of weird.
Blood.
Like a torrent of blood. This is how Wikipedia describes it. A torrent of blood gushes from her genitals. That's how the Wikipedia describes it. And
I
then
thought
it just
one of
cuts
them
away.
killed themselves.
Yeah, and then it shows Gigi and Sarah at this shoot at the end of the movie, and Gigi is not feeling well, and she literally vomits up the main character's eyeball onto the floor, and she says that she wants her out of her, like, I need to get her out of me, I think is what she says. And then she stabs herself with the scissors, and the other one just sort of watches, and then just picks up the eyeball and eats it, and then just goes back to the shoot like she doesn't care. And I think, like, I don't know how supernatural we're going with this, but like I'm pretty sure like these are characters that are like supposed to be like sustaining their youth with by consuming the beauty and innocence of others.
Yeah, see, this is why when we were watching the movie, I left myself like muted because I didn't want to be tempted to answer any questions, because when she first like sucks the blood out of her hand in the bathroom when she like cuts her hand on the broken glass or whatever, you guys were like, "What the fuck, is this a vampire movie now?" And I didn't want to be like, "Well, kinda," and then have to explain.
I thought I was getting From Dusk Till Dawn here.
Right.
I was like, hold on, are they vampires? And then it's like in a sense, kind of, but not really. And the actress that played the one that clearly didn't really care about consuming the innocence of others and just continuing back to her modeling like it was nothing is I think she's the most blatant symbolic character of the modeling world. Like, she doesn't give a shit. She doesn't care how many young people are destroyed in her pursuit of her own goals. She'll just continue to do it. And the other one that had the plastic surgery, like, she had so little self-esteem about herself, she was just, she had to just have plastic surgery to fix everything that she was told was wrong with her. She even says so at one part, that she says that she was just going to get one thing done, and then her surgeon pointed out so many other things that were wrong with her.
Yeah, so many other flaws with my body, I think is what she said.
Yeah, something like that. So it's like that character clearly was not suited for the long run of the modeling industry.
Let's talk about Keanu Reeves in this movie.
Oh, Keanu! Oh my god.
No, it was weird because Keanu, like, if the internet is to be believed, Keanu Reeves is the most wholesome person in existence. He's like helping old ladies with cancer across the street, and he's like giving crippled retards his seat on planes and stuff. So like, seeing a movie where he says, "Oh, check out room 214, runaway 13-year-old, real Lolita shit, man." It's like, It's weird, like, seeing Keanu just be like a piece of shit.
Yeah, like, he's literally the scum of the earth in this character, and he plays it well. Like, at no point I'm like, oh, he's really trying to, like, dig deep. I'm like, oh shit, this is Keanu. I hope you got a hug after this, because
I think the movie does a good job of, like, subverting your expectations as far as, like, who's going to be a villainous character, because it starts out with that Dean guy that looks like Michael Shannon's son or some shit. Starts out with that guy, and it's like he's got this creepy look on his face when he's taking her pictures, and it's like, okay, there's something wrong with this guy. But then he turns out to be the only person in the movie who saw some good within the main character that wasn't just related to, like, being able to use her for your own ends.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I was going to bring that up later. He's probably the only like redeemable character in the movie, and it's set up in such a way where you like think it's this creepbag LA photographer guy that's just like hanging around an underage girl, which
he is.
I mean, to some extent that is what's happening. But he's also, I mean, the movie scene after the scene where the photographer like takes off all of her clothes and paints her in gold and stuff. The movie more or less seems like it just forgets that the character is underage. Like, I feel like that was almost set up just for like the thematic reasons and then to make you feel uncomfortable in that one scene, because throughout none of the rest of the scenes in which we see Dean and the main character, I wish I knew what the fuck Jessie, I think, is her name.
It is Jessie. Yeah,
Yep.
we've been calling
Jessie.
her the main character the whole time.
Yeah,
the main
anyway.
character.
Well, I mean, this movie came out 4 years ago. Anybody that's seen it probably doesn't remember the characters by name, so it's probably helpful. But anyway, as the movie goes on, and as you like all of the scenes with the two of them together, you can tell that he is legitimately the only person that like cares about her as a human being and not as like this object of desire or object of vanity, whatever.
Beauty and all that. Yeah, and it feels like if he was, kind of a piece of shit, he could have gotten away with some stuff. It seemed that she, until she turned, definitely had a liking to him. Not probably fully, because it was that whole thing of like, I've never done anything. But yeah, I really thought at first with Keanu's character that he was just going to kind of be this gruff but lovable hotel owner that just has his own problems. But, because that's what it first started out as, but then it's like, oh, he's like a really bad guy.
Yeah.
Right. It seems like they set up LA as this place that's just filled with predators of all kind. Like, she gets there and the motel she happens to choose is run by some creep that just rents out rooms to runaways, like, seemingly on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he knows. Then she goes to the modeling place and she speaks to, who was it? Christina Hendricks' character? As soon as she gets there, she's the one that enables her to get into this world that she's not ready to be brought into. She's like, oh, just pretend you're 19. Don't say you're 18. That's too on the nose. Just pretend you're 19. And then as a backup, she still gets the parental consent form anyway, so that she can say, like, well, look, her parents consented to this, or so, it wipes her hands clean of any wrongdoing. Then there's the photographer guy that, smears her with the gold paint. He's just like some creep.
Gotta love Mickey. Come on, it's Mickey, the weird guy that stares way too... Some of those scenes, like, I mean, I know it was for tension and all that, but, like, he was just staring and staring, and I'm like, is the movie gonna do something? I'm waiting.
I don't know, maybe it's just something that Refn does, but I noticed it in this and in Drive, but there are a lot of awkward pauses between dialogue lines, and I think it worked in Drive because, like, they established the main character in Drive as, like, this antisocial loner type, but, like, the main character in this is a model who, like, is something that you would imagine one would need to be an extrovert to be. So it was kind of weird. It made more sense with Drive, I guess, to have these weird character moments, because there's, like, a relationship being built there, and there's, like, the awkward pauses because he likes the girl. But in this, it's just sort of, like, weird pauses for seemingly no reason. Maybe just to build up tension.
Yeah, build up tension, I think, make him look a little bit creepier than he already is, which he was already, kind of a creep. But I think just for, like, overall, you could have filled that time with a lot better stuff. Like, when he started doing things, and that's great, but he would, like, spend, like, 15 minutes staring, and then he'd walk over a little bit, and then stare for another 15 to 20 seconds.
Yeah, but I feel like that kind of, like, manufactured intensity is kind of, like, what they were going for with the character, because I'm sure you do get a lot of, like, Hollywood director, photographer types that are like that like intentionally will just stare at you to make you feel uncomfortable, that are silent and brooding and just kind of, vacant as, like, a choice, as like a aesthetic choice. So I don't know. I can't fault the movie too much for that, because I can definitely see a character like that existing in the real world.
Right. It also builds up the tension because, like, he tells everyone to leave the shoot, and it's just gonna be him and her. And it's like, you have the context of knowing that this is a child, basically, that is
Right.
pretending to be 19. And it's you dread, like, the worst case scenario of what he's going to do.
Right.
And just smearing her with the gold paint. I mean, it's creepy, but it was like not the creepiest thing that could happen in LA.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
I can agree with that, to be honest. Maybe it was just my personal thing with, like, well, whenever he did say leave, I think it really did pick up in the intensity of, like, okay, what's going to happen? Speaking of intensity, Ruby, she had some interesting scenes.
Yeah, to
Yeah,
say the least.
that was really bizarre.
She definitely has the most to do of any of the like side characters. Like, she has the most to do with the main storyline. She has the most interaction with the main character. And she's honestly probably, because Joe, you were talking about who stole the show for you earlier, and I was kind of waiting until we got around on this to give my answer, because I honestly think she was probably my favorite performance in the movie. I don't know about my favorite character, but by far my favorite.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
some
think
of the
But I
stuff
love
she
Jenna
does.
Malone in general. I've seen her in a bunch of shit. She's great.
I think that's fair. I mean, I casually called them witches earlier, and I still don't know if that's an accurate description of what they are.
She's into occult stuff, so I
Yeah,
think
she
we
had
can...
like occult tattoos like all over her chest and like her stomach.
Yeah, right. That's, and you don't see that until the end, I think, is kind of the point. Like, you don't see all this like evil shit that is, you know, in her, like a part of her ingrained into her skin, until, you know, all the layers are removed and she's like essentially bearing herself and like showing what her true motives are, and that she's just gonna like now bathe in the blood of this person that she was like pretending to be, you know, a protector for.
Yeah, and I have to agree. Keanu's performance was really good too, and there was a lot of good performances in this. But hers, just like any time that she was on screen, I felt like kind of somewhat comforted, but I was like, there's something more to this character. Like, I even said at the beginning, I'm like, I don't like how she's looking at the main character. And I was able, for the most part, to call what she was gonna do. I unfortunately was able to call the scene with the dead body, which that was a interesting.
Yeah, that was hilarious. You got, like, I wanted to let you guys know that you were right because everybody was talking shit. Steele's like saying, "Oh, she's gonna do something dirty with the dead body.
She's gonna diddle the
make out
body."
with the dead body," and everybody's like, "No, that's disgusting. Stop!" And then I'm just like laughing to myself, knowing that that's exactly what's about to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that. I think I was like, shut up. Like, that's not
You
good.
did. You
exactly.
told me to shut up.
I think I told you to shut up, and then like 2 seconds later, you see her walk over to the door to close it, and she's got like the skirt on. It's like, okay, she went to the morgue in a skirt, so like shit is bound to go wrong here.
Which, to be honest, I wish I wasn't right, because it was very... Like, it was shot
intense.
nice, and it was, like, a very intense scene, but at the same time, I was like, I don't want to watch this.
Right.
No, as far as like, you know, Hollywood movies showing sexual acts in a movie, I never thought like one of the more graphic ones would involve a corpse.
Yeah.
Really, really bizarre. I would say that I do agree that Jenna Malone probably had the best performance in the movie. I mentioned the character of Sarah earlier. I think she's played by like some Australian model. Actually, I think her and Gigi are both played by Australian models, but Gigi covered up her accent a bit better.
And now you bring it up, I could definitely hear that in Sarah's voice. In certain
I mentioned it in the movie. Like halfway through, I was like, hold on, am I just now realizing that this character has an Australian accent? Like, I knew she was Australian because I saw her in Mad Max Fury Road. She was one of like the wives that escaped. But yeah, no, I think her character, Jenna Malone's character, that is, definitely stole the show. And it's interesting to me she was the one that had the occult tattoos, and she covers them up, and you're not really suspicious or anything. Like, even though she's in the modeling world, she's just she just does the makeup.
Yeah, she's not a model herself.
She can get close to all the models. She's closer to the models than anyone else, really, because she's, right in their face doing their makeup. And right from the beginning of the movie, the first scene, she's immediately trying to get the main character under her spell and try and,
grooming her, basically.
Trying to groom her, basically.
Yeah. Which I gotta give it to showing, because it's in certain movies you see it, but like making a character that's predatory in this fashion, a female, you don't see that too much, and I think it's something that I don't think it needs to be like changed in every movie kind of thing. Let's get that in female empowerment.
I mean, that is the twist of the movie, is that you're worrying the entire movie about what the industry and like the male directors and the male photographers and stuff like that are going to do to this character. But then it turns out to be just the makeup lady and the other models themselves that were the ones that actually did her in the end.
And she was amazing in it, and she really sold like the worry for this character, but you still liked her through a majority until it got to the part where she got very predatory.
Yeah, and I'd even say, like, up until, I don't know, it's another thing that's hard with a movie like this, because you're not sure how much of it you're supposed to take literally, but her character was, like, I almost feel like it would have been a little bit better if we didn't see the thing, like the sex scene with the corpse, because I feel like you lose pretty much any amount of sympathy you had for this character up until that point. Like, even through the, like, I don't know if you want to call it attempted rape or whatever, but, like, through that even, I feel like there was a part of me, at least the first time I watched this, that was, like, still believed that this character was in some way trying to protect the main character.
It got to the point where it's like, this isn't you having feelings in any other way other than, like, sexual and or, you find this beauty and you want to covet it kind of thing.
Right. We never really suspect that she's like a predator, like she is.
Mm-hmm.
That would have made the part at the end a lot more dramatic. Not that you wouldn't have seen it coming, but like it would have been a more dramatic scene at the end, where if we hadn't seen the thing where she does does the stuff with the corpse, I feel like the end of the movie where she's by the pool and the girl gets attacked by the other two in the house, and they corner her by the pool, and then Ruby like steps out from behind the tree or whatever and then pushes her into the pool. That would have been a bit of a more dramatic scene if we hadn't just seen how outright crazy the character was.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's what I'm saying too. That's essentially what I was trying to say. Like, I feel like that scene where she fucks the corpse, without that, the ending has like a lot. I don't know, because you just don't see any kind of like true evil to the character until that point. I don't know if maybe other people perceive fucking a corpse as evil, but to me that just
a little fucked up.
Seems a little irreprehensible. Irreprehensible.
Well, it was the fact that it was like an object. Like, it's a dead body, so it's kind of more of an object than a person. But it used to be a person, obviously. But the fact that she's thinking and like visualizing the main character this entire time, it's like, so this is kind of how you see her, just as an object of beauty kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, she does the makeup for the living and the dead, and also tries to fuck the living and the dead. There's basically... she basically sees them as the same thing. Like, she doesn't really give a shit about the other...
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't even think
characters.
about it like
that. Mm-hmm. I would also like to say that I called the main character falling into the pool and snapping. Now, I thought it was going to be her that just jumped in, but...
You thought she was going to jump in the pool and, like, kill herself?
Yeah, she was kind of like, okay, why are you up there, sweetie? Get down. But, yeah.
Yeah, that leg breaking scene.
Mm.
Let's just go ahead and start talking about like the violence and stuff at the end, because I didn't want to tell you guys this when we were talking about it, like considering doing this, like doing a review or conversation on it or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
But I actually like those like 25 minutes of like real horror that are there at the end are great in my opinion. I mean, like the violence, the effects, the way that all of the scenes are done are just some of the best like hyper violent horror film ever.
I can.
Well,
Yeah.
but it's just everything else that surrounds it that spoils the experience for me. But having said that, what did you guys think?
Right. I would agree. Like, as far as from what I've seen from Refn's movies, which to be fair is only this and Drive.
Yeah, you got to see Bronson, bro.
Yeah, I want to see Bronson. I want to see Valhalla Rising. It seems to me that he can put other directors to shame with how his scenes look, and as you said, his writing is a little lackluster in comparison to how good his movies look visually. The last 25 minutes of the movie has the least amount of dialogue in the movie. There's very few lines said by the characters. It's all just through the characters' actions that you see the horror that unfolds in front of you. And yeah, it's great. The creepy scene after they push her into the pool, and it doesn't show anything what they did with her body, other than it just the next scene it cuts straight to the other two showering and her bathing in the blood of the main character, just creepily staring, just pure silence, and all you can hear is like this weird music track going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. That was so effective. I really love that scene. See, that's the thing, is that it's an hour. It's a 2-hour long movie where 20 minutes of it are like some of my favorite some of the best shit that's ever been put on film. It's just, like I said, but yeah, like you were saying just now, the writing is just not really there to support it, in my opinion. I don't know.
If this was a short film, I feel it would work so much better if they cut a lot of the fat out and maybe like 20-30 minutes of like kind of the beginning where it's, setting up everything, and then the last 20 minutes.
Cut every
again.
scene in half.
Yeah.
Cut every scene in this, including the good stuff that I'm talking about. Like, if you literally just cut almost every single scene in this movie in half, and this was a 45-minute long short or episode of, like, Refn's whatever, of, like, some compendium or whatever, like, it'd be great.
Like
it'd
a Twilight Zone-style anthology series or something?
Exactly.
I think he would be good at that. If his episodes weren't, like, 2 hours long.
I was going to say, I don't think he would ever do that, because him with the money and power to just do whatever he wants with a project, and I mean, good for him, like, make your vision, whatever.
Yeah, but that's what his attitude is with his movies, because, like, it seems every movie that he makes, or every project that he does, if you watch the interviews of them, he refers to himself as a fetish filmmaker, in the sense that he makes what he wants to see.
Yeah, I mean, that's why he did that show for Amazon, was they were basically just gave him a blank check to do whatever he wanted. And but that's what I was going to say, is that's kind of the problem with Refn, is even though he can have that like 20-minute section that is super, super effective and really good, what it feels like, how he really likes telling a story, is to have you stare at something that's very beautiful for like an hour and a fucking half, and then like get pretty much all of the story you're gonna get in 10 minutes of the total runtime. I don't know. He's very good at what he does when it comes to visuals. I just wish he'd do it a little less. Like a little bit more substance would be great.
Right. I definitely agree. I do appreciate that he makes what he wants to make. He even down to the details where like his movies are really colorful, and the lighting is really vibrant, solely because, well, not solely because, but partially because he's colorblind to an extent, and he basically just says, like, if the shot doesn't look good to me while I'm making it, like, how am I supposed to be motivated to make the movie? Like, I want the shot to look good to me, and I think that's a really egoistic way of looking at making a movie. Like, it's like, you know what, this movie has to look good to me in order for it to be what I want it to be.
Yeah, and I appreciate the hell out of that. So,
Same.
I mean, like I said, I can never talk shit on the man himself, but when it comes to this movie and Only God Forgives are probably the only two of his works that I would say I don't like. Pretty much everything else he's made, I range from liking to loving very much, and I really think the problems with both of those two movies is he's trying too hard to make a conventional film with like all of these additives or whatever that don't really work in that context. Like if he were to just fully make a Jodorowsky Buñuel style avant-garde out of left field movie that didn't like pretend to have like really well built characters where everything is an allegory, that the visuals and the scenes themselves all contain all of the meaning for the movie, not like the dialogue, character building, whatever, like the normal shit that builds a plot well in a movie. Like if he were to just go completely crazy, I feel like I would like his stuff a lot more than this kind of like half and half stuff where it's like half a traditional horror movie and half like this experiential, colorful, hallucinatory. That's the word I was looking for. Like this mix between a traditional horror movie and a more like hallucinatory allegory. I like both of those types of movies. It's just when he tries to like bridge them that I feel like they're not. It doesn't mesh well, and that's my problem with it. Yeah. Anyway.
Or if we're going to go half and half, have it be a movie that he directs but isn't the one who wrote the screenplay for it.
Which is why Drive is so great, in my opinion. Yeah,
that's the interesting not to just go off on a tangent about Drive, but I think the reason that Drive works is because the story from the book was good. In my opinion, it wasn't that good, but it had like a solid foundation to it. Then the guy that wrote the screenplay, that dude like took the building blocks of that script and just built it up in a way that was way more romantic and like a better story. And then Refn just took that story that someone else wrote and then just made like a highly stylized visual experience out of it. And I think he's good at that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, and then that's the other thing is with Bronson. Bronson is, I mean, obviously its subject matter is in the real world a real person with an actual history. So Refn had that to build upon, and he did write Bronson. I'm not sure if you guys knew that, but he had a real person to build all of this off of. But then that movie itself, and obviously you guys haven't seen it to back me up here, but the difference between that movie and this movie is that movie is very well aware, and the entire time you're watching it, you as the viewer are well aware that this is a very stylized, aggrandized version of true events. Like, none of this is set up like as if it is taking place in your actual universe. It takes place in real British jails. I'm pretty sure they shot it in real jails, and the character himself, Charlie Bronson, is a real character. There's a real human being. But then pretty much everything that happens in the movie, everything that Bronson sees, everything that you see, is stylized and seen through Refn's like lens, like the kind of same lens he uses to make all of these movies with the bright lights and the crazy music score, or the crazy musical stings and scores and everything. But it doesn't try to mix. Like, it's not a traditional drama and then also a Nicolas Winding Refn movie. It's just a Refn movie all the way through. And I feel like that's why this kind of style to a movie works so much better on something like that versus this as like a traditional horror movie married with those elements that he's like known for.
Right. I certainly do appreciate that he tried to make a horror movie. He just kind of mixed two different types of horror in a way that,
Right.
like, the balance was off. Because I think this has basically been a point through the entire review so far, is that 3/4 of the movie is a drastically different tone from the end of the movie. It goes from an uneasy build-up to just insanity at the end. And it's,
Right.
I mean, I don't think anyone really does gore as good as Refn. I mean, people say Tarantino's gore is good. I think he's good at having blood splatter flying out of people, but like
he's really good at getting the lighting. So his whole thing, I feel like, is he's really good at like color. Which I
He
mean,
is.
I didn't know that he was colorblind, like you said a minute ago. So that's even fucking crazier. But he's really good at color. And there's something about the way that the violence in his movies are lit, the color of like the blood effects and everything, and the sound design that just makes everything sound so like real, crisp, and like fleshy, like, you know, like visceral. That really the violence in his movies is great. It always is.
He definitely super saturates his shots, and I'm somebody who's a sucker for something that like usually wouldn't be overly saturated like that. That's one of my reasons that I love Doom Eternal. It's super saturated with like bright colors, and that's something that they did amazing. Which whenever we talk real quick about like our favorite scenes, I guess it's just like the colors in this movie are just fantastic, and the fact that like they don't just like they're not just there, it's like the colors envelop everything in the shot, the characters, and the audio does fit it well, and it just feels like everything color-wise with the lighting and all that just envelops everything, which is really tough to get, to be honest.
right. It's like the few color movies that Kurosawa made where it's very clear just how deliberate he was with the coloration of everything. That's what I feel like Refn is like with this.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know if I'd say he's as good a director as Kurosawa, or at least that Kurosawa had to.
Well, he's a very different director than Kurosawa.
He's
I
more
wouldn't try to do like a straight comparison.
Right. I wouldn't try to compare them, just because they're from two completely different
Right.
eras of filmmaking.
Yeah.
He is definitely on the more side of like you said, whenever it comes to writing, that's definitely not his strong suit. But he's definitely on the cinematography side of things. That's kind of, I feel like he works very close with the cinematographer.
Oh yeah, he certainly does. I mean, he says so as much in interviews about the making color look correct to his eyes. So I would imagine he works very closely with the people that do the cinematography work on his films. And I don't mean to give him all the credit for it, because obviously they do the actual work put into it.
Well, you gotta have a good team that can like mold that and like work together and get that vision that the director wants. And they definitely pulled that off with this movie, no questions asked.
All right, fellas, we're coming up on the end of things. Do you guys want to like summarize your thoughts or anything as far as like the whole movie experience goes? We didn't talk about doing like a rating system or anything, but I guess if you want to rate the movie, whatever you want to do,
Yeah.
Go for it. You want to start, Steele?
Sure, why not? So yeah, right off the bat, I do want to throw in like my favorite scene in this movie, and it's definitely more on the visual side, which this movie is so much stronger for. The party scene for me was just it's in between that and the last 20 minutes, because the last 20 minutes are amazing, but the party scene was just beautiful with like the blue and the purple highlights, and just that really got me going. The acting in certain parts was a little bit left to be desired at certain parts, and I don't know if it's more on the acting side or the directing side. But it didn't like break my immersion or anything like that. Definitely story's the weakest link out of all of this, but overall, like from just a visual standpoint, I could watch this over and over again, just like taking in everything. So if I had to give it like a rating, I'd probably give it like 8 eyeballs out of 10.
All right, fair enough. Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think as far as the movie goes, it's obviously the strongest part of the movie was the lighting, the colors, the overall visual experience of the movie was the selling point of it. And I think anyone familiar with Refn would go in expecting that to be the selling point of the movie. So I would say probably my favorite scene, again, it is in the last 20 minutes. Either that segment with the chase through the house and then, pushing her into the pool and stuff like that, or the actual hallucination itself, when she embraces this world and it changes her for the worse. Just the harsh blues and reds in that scene were very good. And I'd say I actually wouldn't give it as high of a score as Steel did. I would actually only give it a 7 out of 10. But yeah, I could watch it again. I could enjoy the movie again. If I were to show it to someone, I would definitely enjoy it.
Hell yeah. Alright, well, me personally, as I've said multiple times, I'm not a big fan of this movie. I think overall there are too many problems with it, especially as such a massive fan of horror as I am. That's like really, like, I'm a big fan of genre filmmaking just in general, but horror specifically has always been kind of like my wheelhouse. So as a horror movie, I like this movie a lot less. As a Nicolas Winding Refn movie, I don't mind it as much. Like, obviously, all the problems I've said so far throughout the review that I've had with it. But like I said again, those last 20 minutes or so are just so great, like really well made, violent horror that there's still enough for me to enjoy with this thing that I don't completely hate it. I guess if I had to give it an out of 10 rating, even though I generally don't love giving numeric value ratings to movies because it can be, from a personal perspective, so up in the air, I'd say probably a 5 out of 10 overall. Well, I'm glad that both of you enjoyed it. This has been a very interesting conversation. I hope it's been interesting for me anyway. Joe and Steele here have definitely said some things that made me see different parts of the movie a little bit differently, which I always appreciate. Alright, well, I think that about does it for us today, guys. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. We'll hopefully be doing more of these in the future. We'll see whether or not we get anything new coming out that strikes our interest that we can do a proper review for. Anyway, I've been Eli Walls. You can follow me on Twitter at Eli Walls. Joe, do you have anything you want to plug?
Yeah, I hope we can continue to do more of these. And, once shit gets back to normal and movies start coming out on a more consistent basis, we'll be able to get some new movies that people haven't, endlessly talked about. Not that this movie was a particularly hotly debated movie or anything like that.
Yeah, for sure. Steele, do you have anything you want to say before we sign out?
Other than I really just like the conversation we were able to have. It was kind of more off the cuffs and talking about a movie that, like, before this I had no idea about it. I knew the director, but like just being able to see something and talk about a movie we haven't really, I don't think I would have watched if you hadn't brought it up. I think that's kind of fun, and it gets me something to do on my my days off. So
yeah, we've all got those coronavirus blues, nothing to fucking do.
Yep.
All right, well, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch you on the next one. Later.
Yeah, thanks for watching.